Welcome back. I'm glad you were able to join us again because this is going to be an interesting Bible study. An interesting Bible study because seldom have I heard anybody teach on this particular concept. You see, it's not something that is really popular in the United States American way of thinking and working. And so it seems a little weird. It seems a little unusual, unorthodox for sure. Because I want to talk about how do you live large. How do you live large? By living the life of wisdom. Wait a minute. If I'm talking about living large, where does wisdom come into this thing? That doesn't seem to make any sense. Living large means driving a big car and having lots of friends and going to big parties and long vacations out in the country and cruises around the world. And living large means enjoying life, doesn't it? I mean, living large in the American sense means getting what we want when we want it on our schedule. But that's not living large. That's living small. See how weird it is? Yeah, it's living small. That's minuscule living. You know how kind of popular to look at little tiny buildings, and the popular concept is miniature homes, tiny little homes. We would used to think about those as being camper homes or something like that. But that's sort of like living large with wisdom. I mean, isn't that sort of living in a camper? Somehow, not large. Let me read scripture for you because there was a man who lived really large. His name was Solomon, and he was the son of King David. King David was the king that set up Jerusalem as the capital city of Israel, and it was the ruling place not only of all of the 12 tribes of Israel, but it was the place where the new temple was going to be built as soon as David had prepared all the things, and Solomon, his son, was going to become king and would build the temple that would tie the whole nation together. Well, now David has passed and Solomon has taken over as king. He has had some time to try and consolidate his power base, his authority. Now we're reading in 1 Kings chapter 3, verses 5 and following, at Gibeon, where the tabernacle had been set up, the worship place had been there. So Solomon had gone to worship and offered thousands of burnt offerings at the altar. And then it says, verse 5, at Gibeon the Lord appeared to Solomon during the night in a dream. God said, Solomon, ask for whatever you want me to give you. Ask for whatever you want me to give you. Sort of like writing a blank check. Fascinating. Verse 6, Solomon answered, you have shown great kindness to your servant, my father David, because he was faithful to you and righteous and upright in heart. You have continued this great kindness to him and have given him a son to sit on his throne to this very day. Now, Lord, my God, you have made your servant king in place of my father David. But I am only a little child and do not know how to carry out my duties. Your servant is here among the people you have chosen, a great people. They are so numerous, you can't count or number them. Verse 9. So give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people, and to distinguish between right and wrong. For who is able to govern this great people of yours? The Lord was pleased that Solomon had asked for this. So God said to him, since you have asked for this and not for long life or wealth for yourself, nor have you asked for the death of your enemies, but for discernment in administering justice, I will do what you have asked. I will give you a wise and discerning heart, so that there will never have to be anyone like you, or will there ever be. Moreover, I will give you what you have not asked for, both wealth and honor, so that your lifetime there will be no equal among the kings. And if you walk in obedience to me and keep my decrees and commands, as your father David did, I will give you a long life. And then Solomon awoke, and he realized it had been a dream. Now, let's stop for a minute and just look at that for a second. Solomon could easily have said, wow, what a nightmare. Just a dream. No significance whatsoever. 2 or 3 nights ago I had a bad dream. I had to spend a terrible night's sleep. Uncharacteristic for me. Bad dream. Strange dream. Was this really a dream? This appears in God's Word as a story of God relating to another person in the biblical story. Same as you would find when you heard him speaking with and sharing with the boy Samuel, or appearing to Moses on Mount Sinai and giving him the instructions in the 10 laws. God spoke with people through the years, Abraham and Jacob, and it was his pattern to share with them and to bless them. Abraham was blessed to be a great nation, even though he had no heir at that point. Jacob, the grabber, the selfish, the crafty one, the one who was deceitful above everything else, was finally to be changed his name and his identity to Israel, the people of God. If you stop and you think about it, a dream is just a dream until it changes you. And it changed Solomon. You see, the old law, the oldest of all the traditions, had broken down the command of God into 2 primary commands. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, and with all your strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. There were other commands that were very much a part of Hebrew life. They were to hunger and thirst for righteousness. Maybe I can explain this best when I say, if you really have set your heart on wanting to live a life of a wise man, a wise person, a wise individual, you have to set your heart on some very important goals in life. It's hard work. It's hard, challenging work. You see, in America, it's the opposite of wisdom. Now, please understand, talking about wisdom puts me in a real bind, because when I was reading Proverbs through the years and years ago, my mother would scold me for quoting verses out of Proverbs that used the word fool. She said, in my house, nobody's going to use the word fool. You're never going to call anyone a fool in my hearing. I said, but Mother, it's in the Bible that way. The fool has thought in his heart, there is no God. I mean, come on. Give me a little slack here. And she made it very clear. There was no slack. Nobody was going to get called a fool in her place. Okay. So, what I'm going to do is to say, in the United States of America, the standard way of thinking, of doing business, is unwise. That's the best I can do, Mom. I'm sorry. They're just not wise people. They're selfish. They're trying to make something for themselves. They're trying to do something to gratify themselves. They are, come on, that's what we do as Americans. We look out for number one. We don't want to be submissive to somebody. We don't want to be thinking of ourselves as second class anything, right? We want to be the number one. We want to be number one. We sit there and wobble those ones, those foam football games, back in the days when we had sports, because we want to be one. We want to wear all of the Super Bowl rings. We want to be the winners. We want to be powerful. We want to be respected. We want to be seen as worthy people. And the only way to get there is being hard-hearted. I don't care how else you say it. If you try and be a caring, compassionate individual, you're seen as being weak. You're being gullible. You're being stupid. You're being used, manipulated by somebody else. It's better to plot and to plan and put together all the intrigue, I guess you would use the word drama, to try and work things around so that you can get what you want. It's best to be powerful. If you can't be respected, you can at least be feared. Boastful, proud, the center of attention. the center ring on the great three-ring circus. You want to be identified as a recognizable person. You want to be recognized as someone who has respect. Stop and think about it. Think about this issue just for a second. How much value does someone singing a song on the television have to the overall life of our entire nation or world? As soon as you stop singing, the sound stops. So, what have you left the world better for? Did you make somebody happy? Oh, I'm glad you did. What's the average song? Run about 3.5 minutes, something like that? 3 minutes? Depends on how many times you repeat the same words over and over. But have you changed anybody? Have you made anything better? Have you improved life in its richness? Then why, if that doesn't have any positive effect, why do we call these people celebrities? They have no value. But that's the way it works in America. It's unwise. Now, I want to just stop for a second because I kind of draw a picture there of some of the differences here. But I want to just talk about what it means to live large. Living really large means that we recognize our need to be faithful to our God, to the one who created us, to the one who calls us, to the one who gives us our tasks to do, our faithfulness to our Savior who gave himself for us. We need to recognize who we work for. The other night I was watching the movie on television about the Dream Team, the Miracle on Ice team, 1980, the hockey team that won the gold medal for against Russia. And the coach was pounding them, until one day, after asking them over and over again, who do you play for? When they would talk about their college, or they would talk about their team, or they would talk about their coach, or they would say, I play for so-and-so university. Finally, one of them, just one of them, Michael Ruzioni, they say, spoke up at the end of a practice after they were all exhausted, and he said, I play for the United States of America. That was the turning point. You see, knowing who you are and who you are working for is the source, it's the foundation stone for knowing how to live large. If we know we are working for the Lord Jesus Christ and we've committed our lives to him, he's the one who saved us. He's the one who has given himself for us. He is the Messiah, the Son of the living God. We don't have to boast about how smart we are, what kind of a genius we are. Because we didn't choose this ourselves. God has put us in this role. You see, we can be modest and meek let me rephrase, meek. Oh boy, that sounds bad. That sounds like you got a big problem going. When you look at what Solomon said when he was praying and asking God, he says, "But I am but a little child. I am such an immature person. How can someone who has no more knowledge or insight than I take care of such a great people? You see, this is your people, and now you've made me their king. How am I going to do that? I'm but a little child." He wasn't American, you see. An American would never stand for anybody that says, "I am but a mere man. I am just a simple human being. I don't have all the answers. I don't have all the miracle cures in my hands. I can't make everything you want to happen so that you can have everything you desire." That's un-American. That's just flat out un-American. We're going to get rid of you. If you don't know, or say you know, exactly what needs to be done, we don't have any confidence in you. Modesty. Meekness. Meekness doesn't mean you don't have any power. Meekness means I know exactly who I am, I know exactly what my resources are, and I know how to manage them in such a way that God doesn't have to be embarrassed. I'm going to do what needs to be done and use all of God's authority to take care of that work. But not for my own aggrandizement, my own prestige, but to build up the kingdom. It's a strange story. I mean, when I was back in college, I was an extremely capable businessman. I could make money. I was a good businessman. I really had the sense of my own worth, my own sense of it, is I could talk just about anybody into doing what I wanted them to do regardless. I had that experience. I had that background. That's who I was. Then one day God called me into pastoral ministry. He asked me to be faithful to Him, 100%. I accepted. And almost immediately I became the worst business person I'd ever met. Every single enterprise I ever tried since failed. Unless I was working for somebody else. When I was working for someone else, I could make them a ton of money. When I was working to help somebody else's reputation, I could make them really thrive. I could make their failed business attempts turn it around and make them a great deal of wealth. But it never ended up being something I did for me. It always had to be to take care of somebody else. So it made me a terrible businessman in one sense. Living large means being respectful. One of the things in Solomon's prayer that really impresses me is that he gave his father David a tremendous amount of respect for what he had provided to his son Solomon. His example, his faithfulness, his leadership was critical to Solomon being able to do what he needed to do. And he recognized how much he had been given by those who had gone before him. He was respectful, appreciative. He was also obedient. You see, he was there at Gibeon to faithfully worship. He brought his gifts to the altar. He was in the right spot. He was doing what God asked him to do, what his father and those who had lived before him had done, faithfully living out the commitment to follow God's plan. Not only was he building a temple, he was also obedient to what God was doing. Because he was obedient, he was in the right place so that he could actually have the dream and communicate with the Spirit of God. He was a peaceful person. One of the very first stories, it's a fascinating story to me, is he made a treaty with the country of Egypt. He went down to Egypt and asked the Pharaoh in Egypt if he could marry the Pharaoh's daughter. Now, Solomon gets kind of a bad rap at times because he had a lot of these wives, and it was like somebody's idea of a harem. I think it's probably a misplaced picture. I don't think it probably had that same idea. He made treaties that were filled with the blood of those he had agreed with. Think about it in a different way. Is the Pharaoh in Egypt going to attack and try and level Jerusalem with his daughter and grandkids there inside the city? No. All of these treaties were signed in blood. And he made peace with all the nations all around by weaving their families together into one harmonic place. I'm going to think of it just a little differently. If you give me a little artistic license or something, I'm going to do this differently. If there ever was an example of United Nations, it would be in Solomon's palace. Because people of different nationalities and different backgrounds were all living there together under one roof. There was an ongoing, constant debate about what the customs and requirements of different societies and different groups had been, so that each person got their own level of respect and approval and listening time. There wasn't a hierarchy of first level wives, second level wives, third level wives. Solomon brought these people together from various parts of the world and tried to put them into an organized place where each could be recognized, each could be accepted for what they believed and were, and they could be cared for. There was nobody saying to Solomon, "Shame on you for not taking better care of my daughter, for taking better care of my grandkids." Solomon was probably the very, very first king, in my recollection or knowledge of history, that brought all the various customs, religions, nationalities, languages together into one place so that they could get a sense of partnership with each other. They were all in the same household. Just interesting. It takes a certain degree of humility to allow someone else to teach you what they hope and feel is important, and then listen to them and care for them, even though they're very different from you. economically different. Some are powerful nations, some are weak nations, some are extravagant nations, others are very humble nations. There are racial differences between. I mean, if you look at who came into Solomon's court, there wasn't even a racial divide or a separation. They were in the same household, living together, working together. A person who wants to live large needs to be merciful and compassionate. You see, you will never receive mercy or compassion, forgiveness or grace, if you don't first demonstrate that and give it out. If someone has been forgiven much, they are much more likely to give you that chance to ask for forgiveness, mercy, compassion. In the ministry of taking care of the nation of Israel, there were all kinds of people at all different levels and stratas in the society. If you said, I'm only going to take care of this group over here, I've had some pastor friends of mine, I'm only going to take care of people 35 years old and younger. I'm only going to take care of you. You have to find something else to take care of you if you're over 65. Or I'm only going to take care of this group over here. Or this is going to be my specialized group. This is my pastoral identity over here. Well, good luck with that. I don't know how you subdivide God's family and only care for certain ones that you like or you feel most comfortable with, does it? You see, there's a sense of justice and fairness that every single person who's ever been born into this world knows if they've been treated fairly, if they've been treated justly. My grandpa, Meade Douglas, used to have a saying. He said, when you do a business deal, Tommy, that was my dad, never try and get the last dollar from the person you're dealing with. Always leave something in the till. Because if they know that they didn't have to give you every single thing that you demanded, you'll get a lot better, get along a lot better over time. You see, my grandpa Meade knew that justice, finding fairness, finding that tipping point where everybody feels like they've been given a fair shake, is extremely important to keeping the peace in our community. You can't have peace without justice. What it writes on the Supreme Court building, equal under the law. Equal under the law. Does that mean that someone who's worth $1 bazillion is equal to someone who is bankrupt? Equal economically? No, not equal economically. One's got tremendous wealth, can afford all the fancy lawyers or whatever else, and one person can't even afford anybody to represent them. Equal under the law doesn't mean being equal representative or in wealth. Equal under the law doesn't mean that you have no differences between people. I mean, it was very recent until women were given the right to vote in the same way that men had always been allowed to vote. That people of different races were given the right and the encouragement to vote in making the nation a better place. Equal under the law means no difference under the law. It means everybody gets a fair shake. Everybody gets a fair deal. Living large means letting people know that they are valued no matter who they are or how they came to be in our relationship. Being wise, living large, means you are in a constant educational relearning process. Nobody can get everything you need to know in your head at one time. I graduated from college 1973. I thought I was pretty smart. I graduated from seminary in 1985. I thought I was magnificently smart. But you see, I didn't really understand how much I didn't know. How can you know what you don't know until you're exposed to what you don't know and you're embarrassed to realize how much you really didn't understand? And so you learn again, and you learn it even better the second time, and you willingly accept the challenge to start over, learn again, try again. A person who is going to live large has to live unselfishly, has to live unselfishly. Boy, if there was one that was hard to come up with, it would be that one. Because we are, at the core of our being, we are selfish individuals. If you look at what happened in the Garden of Eden, Satan simply asked the question, don't you want more from life than what you've got? Don't you want more? Don't you want more? Don't you want to be like God? Don't you want to be everything you can be? Oh, what a stinker he is. Years and years and years ago, back in Iowa, a man came through selling some sort of a pyramid scheme. And a friend of mine asked if I was interested in going out and listening to his presentation. There are about 25 or 30 people in that room. Big circle of people. The first thing this snake oil salesman did, sorry, that sounded demeaning. First thing he did was to go up and down every row of all the people sitting there and said, what do you want that you don't now have? What do you want that right now you can't do or you can't have? And every person went down the line and said, I want my kids to go to college. I want a bigger house. I'm living in a dump now. I want to drive a better car because this thing's always in the garage. I want this. I want that. I want this. I want that. Oh, he was just thrilled. Oh, fantastic. Great. That's wonderful. Okay, yeah. And each one came down through. Now you have to understand, I was just a kid working in the church part-time. I think I was making $8,500 a year, getting free cheese from the government and living with powdered milk as our staple. And he came to me and he said, there you are. Now what do you want? What do you want that you currently do not have? Oh, the list could have been very, very long. I was driving an old rusted out green 72 Ford Galaxy and it was a mess. I was living in an old rattletrap of a house that cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars each month in the winter to keep it warm. Still couldn't do it. We had plastic and styrofoam wedged in the windows to try and keep the cold wind from blowing through. Now, what do you want? I said, well, you know, I'm feeling pretty good about where things are. I like the way things are working out for us right now. I think I'm going to just say there's nothing I need right now. I'm good shape. Okay, well, I'm cool. What don't you want for your kids? I said, my kids are fine. They're growing. They're doing great. Don't you want for your family? No, Don't you want to go on vacation once in a while? Yeah, I'd like to, but where would I want to go? I have no real desire for that. Don't you want something for the church? Come on. Don't you want your church to do something or other that you can actually see something tangible? No, we're doing fine. Wasn't exactly true, but you know. He wanted me to say what I wanted for myself. And when I refused, absolutely refused, he made up a bunch of his own ideas that he wanted for himself and put them on me. And said, there, now you have something that you should want. I've never wanted a boat in my life, but that's one of the things he put on me. Now, why is that important? Solomon lived an amazing life. Absolutely amazing. Because the first thing he asked for was wisdom, a discerning, insightful heart to know right from wrong, justice, mercy. He wanted to be a faithful servant of the God who had placed him in that role. And he lived large, like no one else. Like no one else. Hold that thought for just a second. Now let's jump about 1,000 years forward. And the man who was Jesus, before he had preached his first sermon, before he was announced to the world in any way in a public spectrum where people could actually see and evaluate him for themselves, was driven by God's Spirit out into the desert, into the wilderness. And in that moment of total weakness, I mean emotional, spiritual, physical exhaustion, 40 days alone, isolated, no food, alone, Satan tempts him. Satan tempts him. If you really want to live large, Jesus, satisfy your needs by using your power to turn these stones into bread. Could he have done it? Absolutely. But you see, Jesus was surrendered 100% to doing his Father's will and letting all of his needs be met by his Father's provision. See, there's a difference there. If I take my needs into my own hands, like the man did that wanted to sell me some sort of a pyramid scheme, it'll just go right straight through my fingers like sand. and you're left with empty. You use your own influence, you use your own power, and that's what you're left with. You're empty-handed. The next temptation was all the kingdoms in the world. I can give you all this power. I can give you all this prestige, all of this influence. Everybody from every corner of the world will come to you and ask for your opinion and your guidance and your wisdom. And all you have to do is sit here and be my person, my agent in the world. Jesus refused the power. Then he took him up to the pinnacle of the temple and wanted him to make a spectacle so that everybody would recognize his power, his ability to save himself, to stand out from the crowd. He's the guy that really is impressive. This guy really knows how to throw a show. His ratings are unbelievable. He's got a bazillion Twitter followers because they all want to see what he's going to do next. Jesus said, no, we're just not going to put the Lord to the test. I got important work to do. I have important work to do. I have world-changing work to do. But only if I follow my Father's instructions. Only if I do it the way He wants me to. Now I say this to you because Jesus would have been the most un-American person that ever lived. He'd never be elected for anything, even dog catcher. You can't do that. You got to brag about how many pets you've been able to snag and remove and things. If you want to be a dog catcher, you got to prove it. You got to tell people how good you are, what you're doing. I'm sorry. A wise man doesn't boast. You know why? Because everybody knows what a wise man has accomplished. You don't have to brag. Wise man is known for what he does. I want you to follow this for just a second because we have a lot of work to do as a people, as a nation, as God's followers, as the ones who come to love Jesus Christ with all of our hearts. We've got a lot of work to do. And sometimes it means doing the very opposite of what we would have thought we had to do. Aren't we supposed to be the ones who stand up and pound for what's right? Isn't that the American way? Isn't that the way normal people work? It's not American to stand there and say, I'm just a child. I don't have all the answers. The American way is, I'm smart and I'm crafty and nobody better cross me because I know how to put punishment down for anyone who tries to discourage or cross my intentions. I know how to damage you and oppress you and put you down. I know how to dominate. That's the American way, isn't it? Come on with me. Anybody say amen? Come on. Jesus knew how to live large. It meant to die. It meant to die. But that's what it meant. To live God's way. He came to live in full obedience to his Father in heaven. And because he came and was faithful, he was rewarded with more rewards, more power, more influence, more respect, more authority than anyone in this human world has ever comprehended. And for all time. Not just for a lifetime, not just like Solomon did, just for a few years, and then you watch the whole nation fall apart because the people who come behind you aren't as dedicated to wisdom and faithfulness as you have been. And you just watch everything that you worked for dissolve around you. Very discouraging. But we are responsible only for what God has given us to do. And my prayer is I want to live large. I want to live the life of a wise person, an obedient servant of the Lord. I want to live as God's faithful servant. Nothing more. I want to live in a way that pleases my Father in heaven. And everything else can be thrown away like the trash that went in the garbage truck this morning and is just never going to be counted worth anything again. Because all of the rest of it is just trash compared to what it means to be given that greatest Olympic medal anyone can ever receive. The greatest Super Bowl ring anyone can ever hold on their finger. When he says, "Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have done what pleased me. You've been faithful. Come into my kingdom."